To me, that's a problem. So this YMCA, it's a safe place. Like my father said, it has walls. Kids need supervision. No matter where they're from, they're going to get up to some things that they probably shouldn't get up to. The top places to hang out in Pottstown are the parks, the streets, corner stores, and this YMCA. A lot of the students, their parents work during the summer, so they're at home alone. Where are they going to go? Even if the parents are home, they don't have access to a vehicle. Most of our students can't even get driven the 10 minutes to get to the school, and they walk. So how do you expect them to get driven to the other YMCAs or any other location? A lot of them can't afford to go to fancy summer camps over the summer. It's a lot easier for them to scrounge up the 50 cents to go to the corner store and buy a honey bun and then spend a couple 10 minutes or maybe even an hour out there talking with their friends. So that's why the YMCA would have been the safest and easiest place for the youth in our community to go to over the summer. But the way it's going, that doesn't seem like it's going to be an option. So the youth are already going to be subject to staying out in the streets, hanging out in the parks, and hanging out in front of corner stores. They're going to experience things that they don't need to experience at their age because they're not going to be able to access the safe place of the YMCA. And they're going to be sent spiraling down a negative path that they're already at high risk for simply because of the area we're in. And like my father said, I'm going to be honest, we are in an area where stuff does happen, but there's a lot of youth and young people that don't need to be subject to that, but they're going to be eventually because this YMCA is going to close now. So all of this could have been prevented if the Philadelphia Freedom Valley simply stood by their mission statement to translate the principles of the YMCA's Christian heritage into programs that nurture children, strengthen families, build communities, and develop healthy spirits, minds, and bodies for all. This clearly was not upholded. You took funds that were supposed to nurture our children, strengthen our families, build our communities, and you're taking away our community YMCA, this facility, that help develop our healthy spirits, minds, and bodies for all. So I believe that you have misled myself, the other youth, and our community. And if your mission statement isn't what you stand by, then you should change it. Thank you, that's all I have.
I'm David Vally, Jr. I'm a junior at Pottstown Senior High School. My friends are being affected by this. My family is being affected by this because they are members of this Freedom Valley YMCA. By June 29th, 5,500 members in and outside the borough are going to be affected. That's families without safe haven for their kids. That is Jabri's team without another place to play. He has a team inside our school which was kicked out of the All Boys and Girls Club right down the street because they thought he was charging people. Okay, that hurts us. That hurts our swim team, who's not going to have a place to be. That's kids who are going to be on the street. They don't need to be subject to that. This is their place to be, so they can be safe. What's going to happen by that time? Where they're going to be? What life are they going to be living? Because not everybody has a lot of money. Not everybody else is blessed to have a lot of money and a good place to be, not a house. Some people live in homeless shelters, you know, and we are not. There's a good percent of Pottstown that's under the poverty level. So I just want to know why. Because I don't think you guys understood when you made that choice, how this is going to affect the community, going on what you said. But the kids, they're not going to have a place to go. This place is a place of convenience for everybody. The next YMCA is like about, I think, 9 miles away, right? So where are they going to go? That's my question.
And one thing, at the one meeting we had, commissioners meeting, a lady stood up and what was that? What was that disease she had?
Fiber, yeah.
What was it? I can't hear. They need to hear it.
Fibromyalgia.
Yeah, she stood. Excuse me, I didn't pay attention to school too much. John Amato was my teacher. He slapped me every time I speak in public because he was my oral communication teacher. And he said, you should have listened to him. But anyway, she stood up and she gave a speech about how the South Pole, she went there for therapy because of her disease. And due to that South Pole shutdown, she has not been nowhere to get therapy. So you guys put a price tag on human lives. And that's what we're here for, to ask you to take it back to your board, to reconsider and see if there's any way that we can, as a community, find some type of way to keep this building open.
I am the chaplain for the Pottstown Police Department. So I work with the police department. I'm an ex-Maryland State Trooper. And when these young people talk about the dangers that our youth will approach upon them. It is serious, especially with the drug problems that we have in our area, in our community. We cannot afford to have another facility closed without there being alternative to save a child's life. As we talk about the swim programs and the other programs that are here, not only for the youth, but also for the elderly, those who are medically in need of such, we have no place to go. So, you know, I think they represent it well. If you excuse me, I like to applaud young people who are doing a great job. They can represent me anytime. So I hope you see the depth of what we're trying to say here.
One more thing, I got you, man. She's a new member right here. Jim wanted to speak after the young people.
I just want to say this so you clearly understand, Sean, what the gentleman said. We did a year's due diligence before we did the merger here. The engineer from the Vally YMCA was here and walked this building the whole time. He had a whole list of stuff that he thought had to be done to get this building up to snuff. And we gave him the money. We trusted him with the endowment money. With that in mind, we gave $1 million to Upper Perk. That would have never happened with the local money from the Smith Charity Fund if they knew that money was needed for this building. And they extended out for years on laying out what had to be done, and we entrusted them to do it. Now, I'm also going to challenge you on your numbers. You say you're losing $200,000, and I'm going to look at your board members. You gave me a document saying you lost $200,000 in 11 and 12. And I said you board members in 2013 that you lost $865,000. Does that make sense to you? Well, but I'm only saying, does that make sense to you? What happened? I'm challenging you now, Sean. Let's see what those numbers are. Because I think a lot of these costs are not real actual costs, and they're coming from this corporate overhead. You allocate $700,000 a year to this building. Do you provide $700,000 a year worth of funding? That tells me if there's 18 Ys, that your administrative cost is $14 million. Is your administrative that you got to allocate is $14 million? I think you owe it to this community to show what these numbers are that you're being charged for if you're saying we're losing this money. Because I will tell you, I was on this board before. I went through the payrolls here at night with the management, and we looked where we spent the money. And I can tell you, any organization, and everybody's a business person here, if you went from $200,000 loss to $800,000, that should have had people going all over the place looking to see what's going on. And again, the fundraising. We raised $150,000 a year with 2 events here, which in the last 10 years would have brought $1.5 million to help fix this building. That was all stopped.
Was this, all these figures, was this brought up at the task force to the
Yes.
representatives?
And the most important thing I want to tell you, the task force, we were brought in to help. And I will tell you this, because I asked the question when they said they were looking at a child care center, and I asked the question, where? They wouldn't even share that with us. They told me it was going to be outside the borough probably, and I asked why, and that was critical that it would be inside this borough. And this was, all right, they basically said we talked to the large donors, and that was what we're going to do. They blew us off. So if you want to know why you had problems with the task force, that, and I think you see now the criticalness of the daycare in this community, that was one of the main things we said. It has to be, this is central located. And they looked at us like we didn't even know what we were talking about. So all that years of due diligence for the merger and everything, and all this was made in one coordinated decision. This many lies were affected, and I'm challenging your numbers. I'd love to, let's be honest, let's really see what these numbers are, because I don't think it's being spent here. For these numbers you say are these big deficits. Because the reason we did the merger, we were told that the cost was going to be decreased, joint cost and everything else. The cost from the merger went up $900,000 since we did the merger. Why? Is it poor management? I'm asking.
Would you like to, before I ask you to speak, I'd like to introduce our sister chapter, that's our state, that's our Reading chapter president of the NAACP, Ms. Stacy Taylor. And that shows you the importance of NAACP would feel about this facility closing, and it's actually other branches are looking at this issue. But you can go ahead.
I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Can you just, you sure? Thank you for that, ladies first.
Okay, thank you for coming. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. I understand that from a business viewpoint, you don't want a deficit, that's not good. But from a charitable 501c3 standpoint, you bring multiple branches into your fold to establish, I think, some sort of equilibrium. And the Ys that are better off help the Ys that are needier. But all that you're saying about deficits and that being a reason here, are you saying that whatever happens in Pottstown has to be financially sustainable in Pottstown? And if so, what's the point of being part of this group?
Okay, if I answer? or-
Yeah, sure. She asked you.
So, the operating deficit, the reason we kept mentioning the operating deficit explains why maybe over time the building had been reinvested, like one would hope would be reinvested. So if the operation isn't generating any money, in fact losing money, not enough money was generated. That's prior to the Philadelphia Y ever being involved. So I'm speculating as to how the building got in that shape when it wasn't here, but that seems to make sense.
That's not the point.
Yeah, no, just let me finish, please. The operating deficit isn't the issue, it's the building. So we didn't say that the Pottstown Y couldn't operate at a deficit. As a matter of fact, if you talk to our board members, they'll say, we're prepared to operate a deficit. The trouble is the building itself. So if we want to provide a service for youth or adults or whatever the program may be, we can do it on a sustainable basis or even operate at a deficit. What we can't afford is the building itself. It requires so much money. So if you're going to put in millions and millions of dollars, wouldn't it be better to put it in people as opposed to a building? So we do not necessarily need to break even here at Pottstown. What we're saying is we can't sustain both an operating deficit and put in millions of dollars into the building that it has fallen into disrepair over the years in terms of the infrastructure.
Do you have a figure in mind? How much of a deficit are you willing to?
Well, what I said we said, and I said specifically to the task force was, I can't go to the board of directors and say, underwrite all these programs. What I need to say is, here are the programs we'd like to operate, here's the deficit at which we operate, do I have your approval? So the idea of the task force, and clearly the task force didn't work like anybody would like, either some of the members of the task force or the Y. But we'd like to say, all right, we want to operate the following programs. We want to serve the people, and so can we do it? Certainly the issue has become about the building itself, and from the Y perspective, we're trying to make it about the programs and service delivery.
Sean, would you be able to take some of us around who haven't seen the building and look at what you're referring to? I've seen it, so I mean, I don't need to go, but other people here on the end.
And just to be clear, we're happy to give as many reports as we want. We shared it with the task force. We did share the 5-year financial in detail. I think we even sent it to the Mercury and what have you. So we're happy to share that in detail. You know, some of the things that you refer to as overhead are things like computer systems and marketing brochures and what have you. So we do that centrally. But I also have to tell you, there are lots of people that we serve from all walks of life, right, in many different communities. Yet, I've heard Haverford mentioned, I've heard Ambler, and I've heard Willow Grove. What I haven't heard mentioned is Camden, West Philly, North Philly, South Philly, those kinds of areas. So we have a whole range of demographics and income levels. And we're absolutely prepared to service the Pottstown community.
I have to stop you. Those are segregated by neighborhoods. I've been a part of the neighborhoods from Haverford all the way to West Philly,
Yes.
to Pottstown. And I have to stop you because it's segregated in those areas. What you're failing to realize, the jewel that this community actually is, for all of its roughness, the jewel that it actually is the diversity. This is not West Philly, this is not Haverford, this is Pottstown, and you're not from here, and before you make a decision to buy the building, you didn't ask what are the safe walking routes for the children. The children have safe walking routes that lead to the Y, where nobody will mess with them. Even interfering with that, it's a delicate ecosystem that is very diverse. So that's why when we call out Amber, who has more money, when we call out Haverford, who has more money, we understand what Camden goes through. We do, for being black. But for the people that are white that are going to the Y, they don't. And it's not your neighborhood, with no disrespect, that's not your neighborhood, Camden. You don't know about Camden either. But if Camden is still operational, there's a reason that Camden is operational. It's not in Montgomery County. And that's where I'm calling the red line now. Because if Norristown is shut down, and here it's shut down, and you keep shutting them down, but you only put them up in segregated neighborhoods. And that is the truth. And you may not look at it that way because you see it from a business aspect, and I understand that. But I have the choice. I can move out of Pottstown. I choose to be at this meeting to make Pottstown a better place. And you really have to realize that. You really, really do it. If you go out there and you walk on the safe walking route, you'll be okay. I dare you to walk down some of the other streets tonight. But if you walk down the safe route, and that safe route will lead you here, nobody will mess with it. And you're talking about dispersing, you don't understand the community. You have input to things that you don't understand from a business aspect. And that's run the business, but don't run a charity. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's not charitable to take.
I just have this one question. We look at the expenses, we look at that the funding are disappearing. I want to know about this board. How many do you have on your board that are receiving compensation for being board members?
None. No.
Okay.
It's a charitable organization.
Okay. As the CEO, you get?
I get paid, yes.
Okay. And you the COO?
Yeah.
You get paid?
They range from 300,000 down to 100,000.
Okay, so you're the only officers that get paid? I mean,
We have 5,000 staff, and 750 or so are full-time, and the rest are
okay, so your revenue for your salary comes in from where?
comes in
From branches?
fees, yes, branches, childcare centers, camp.
How much each branch is supposed to forward upward?
There's no one forwarding any money upward. We assign common costs to each branch, right? So if we buy a brochure, or we have computers that are networked together, or we have a human resources manager that helps with staffing issues, or we have group benefits and what have you, we allocate that out to each branch based on the size of the operation.
Okay. So the money has to come from someplace, and it starts at the grassroots, which is the branch, right? For it to go into. So there is somewhat, even if it's not noted, there is an assessment, basically for a branch, to filter into the association.
And some branches do cover overhead, some branches aren't able to cover that.
So the overhead, what is
That'd be the
that?
central costs of managing, like,
Your salary is in the overhead?
marketing, computers, IT, human resources, all those sorts of things are in overhead.
How is Pottstown, how is that number given a percentage?
Typically, our overhead is assigned at about 12% of the size of the operation.
Because I look at, I have a membership list, and we're 3% of your total membership, or 3% of your total volume, but yet you're giving us 12%. Does that seem fair?
Well, I could spend a long time explaining overhead.
My only point is,
confuse people.
is that a profit center? Because if you're giving us 12%, you got 18 branches, 18 times 12 is like 200%. That doesn't seem like a fair allocation.
Okay, I understand what you're going.
You understand that, John?
Yeah, but we're here for the NAACP to represent the low income, the minority, the senior citizens, the disadvantaged. So that's our
And-
focus.
Just so we're clear, the board members, there's no compensation.
Okay, no compensation.
I mean, we give, so it's.
Okay.
We keep going back.
Even with
Going back to
our,
numbers.
even with what our president is saying, It is the citizenry of Pottstown through tax paying and everything else that have to deal with the finances. Even though we're talking about the diversity in our community, it's taxpayers. This is taxpayers' money that is going this way, whether it be through our local tax or our school tax or our county tax or the state tax. Are you getting any grants coming in from the state?
We get no government funding.
I have a quick question. We sent a resolution to the board. Did your board members get a resolution from the NAACP, from the Pottstown School District Task Force resolution? We didn't get a response. The reason why we couldn't respond to that? I didn't think it was going to be a response.
I know it was sent to our board members, but I didn't know that there was a request for a response, and that would have come from the leadership team. It wouldn't have come from the board members directly.
Did you discuss it in the board meeting?
Yeah, what was the comment? What was, you know? We have a copy of the response here.
We're here
NAACP
now.
resolution.
What did you think? Come on.
Yeah.
We're here now. What did you think about our resolution?
This is our resolution, it's almost 3 pages long, 4 pages.
I don't remember it being a long, in-depth conversation, and I know it was brought up in a meeting, but I don't remember the dialogue that it went on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't remember that. I really don't.
I'll be honest, and Jim, you and I talked about this, and this is where I would prefer this not get spun out of context, but I thought what you said was reasonable. I understood everything. When I saw the comment about $7.6 million, that threw me for a loop.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to be rude. This is what irks me. We always talk about figures when it comes to you guys. I'm going to read a couple.
But no, excuse me, but you did ask what our opinion was. I'm just telling you. And by the way, I had nothing
And
to
that's
do
what irks me is you brought up $700,000 and that disturbs you, right?
No, I was saying Jim and I talked. No. Jim and I talked about. Jim and I got together.
Yeah.
Look, this didn't matter. to me. I got plenty of things to do at home. I got a 12 and a 10-year-old and plenty of sports.
What did you believe in?
This is important thing. No. But I'm saying, Jim and I got together two weeks ago. No, Jim and I got together 2 weeks ago. This is important to me. And I want you to know that. But
Okay.
you're asking for our opinion on that. And when I went through these lines, that was the one thing that jumped out at me. And I thought, all right, I understand a lot of other things. What I want to try to get out of this meeting, totally separate of that real quick, is what you're saying here, I believe matters. So it seems to me, I understand, and that's on us. We got to figure all this out. But I'm sitting here going, and I talked to Jim, and I know Jim stated this pretty clearly the other week. This location, this building's what you want. But if I just throwing out another idea, if this wasn't an option, where else could we make an impact here? That's my main question. Like that's, and early in the meeting, that's one of the things you brought up, Johnny. Like, what are other ideas?
Please be understanding that
He has his hand up.
it is so intricate, the webs that are holding this town together right now. By coming in without knowing the infrastructure of the town, it's completely disrupting it. And I can't, me personally, I can't suggest for you to say, put it over here, put it over there. I said, this town has been, we don't have school buses for our children in this town. Meaning the children have to walk. There are paths that the children walk every day where they would not be disturbed or messed with. Every parent along that route has their eye out for the children. So what you're asking is to say, well now, where do we put something else? The town, that's what I'm.
And that's not my intent. I hope you understand. That is not my intent.